Hello guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today's video we are talking and reviewing a book that I did not like. It's been a while since I reviewed a book that I did not like, but I don't think that it makes total sense for me to review and recommend books I don't like, but this one I didn't like and I have a lot to say about it because this book is one of the most beloved pieces of literature of all time, and it's considered to be the greatest love story in literature, and so on and so forth. And this book is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, as you can see. I mentioned this book in my previous video about my favorites because the cover was actually my favorite cover of 2018. I will link the video down below if you want to see my favorite of 2018, favorite author and all of that. But today we are talking about Pride and Prejudice and why I did not like this book and it gave me such a hard time reading it. Now, just to give you a little bit of background and setting, this has been written by Jane Austen in the 19th century and it's set in England. It is a love story, romance, depends, each person calls it something, but it is known for being a great love story. And the general plot, it follows the life of a Bingley family. There's the Bennet family. There is Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and they have 5 daughters. The 2 eldest are Elizabeth, Jane, and then Elizabeth. And this story focuses in actions and drama and everything surrounding the life of this family, and mainly how Mrs. Bennet just wants to marry her daughter, all of her daughters. She wants to marry them off. They are a mid-situation family. They are not really born with big fortunes, so she really wants to marry them into big families, big names and big fortunes, especially that there are 5 girls and they are definitely not entitled to keep the property of their fathers, so they have to, be better off married. So this is the overall story of this book. Then of course we follow in particular the two love stories. Somehow this is how I saw it. Jane and Mr. Bingley. So Mr. Bingley and his friend Darcy, they move into the neighborhood of the Bennet, and this is when these families meet each other and the daughters meet Mr. Bingley and his friend Darcy. And the love stories are between the eldest Miss Bennet, which is Jane, and Mr. Bingley, and of course the greatest love story of all time between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. So this is the story basically, and the entire book is, flirtations, trying to, get, proposed to, and of course also some backstories about the other sisters like Lydia and so on and so forth. Now, this is basically the story. There's nothing else going on other than that. There is no main, problematic or anything. It's just literally that. Before starting to say why I did not like this book, I want to say why I think this book has something interesting to talk about. Now, it's been published in the 19th century, it's the 1800s, and at that time, I would understand why it might be interesting to read about that time. First of all, it's important to say that when this book came out first, when it was published by Jane Austen, it was not a great hit during the 19th century because it did not show them anything new. It was basically just a retelling of an everyday social life, so it was not that big of a hit. And afterwards, of course, it started showing as a great piece of literature because of one reason that I liked is this social satire of society. Jane Austen looks at the English society of the 1800s with a very, very critical, funny, satirical eye, and this is personified with some really, really annoying characters like Mrs. Bennet. She's a really, really, just odd, annoying woman. So yeah, I really love the portrayal of this society and how she had this very much somehow a very critical eye, and she actually was making fun of how everything was done. Also, I really love, not love, but I really like that for that time. It's very interesting to see the character of Elizabeth, because she's a symbol of female resistance. She is very much against this idea of just marrying for good fortune. She is really against this idea of marrying young, or just marrying just to be married and have a title. She reads a lot of books. She's into her reading. She's someone who thinks a lot, who has a very critical mind, which was not a norm for girls at that time. And she's really advocating reading, educating oneself to be able to be critical and actually choose wisely and know what you're doing. I really love this idea. It's very important when we see that this is a voice that was prevailing in the 1800s. So it's important, and I can see why this can be seen as a very, very rebellious act in literature. Now, these were the really good things that I loved about this book. I mean, not love, that I might understand the fuss about this book. Now, moving on to the actual plot and why I did not like it. For me, it was really empty. There was literally nothing going on other than dances, invitation to dinners, tea parties, Mr. Bingley hanging out with Jane, flirtations all over the place. I mean, one of the sisters running away. It was just full of drama for nothing. I really did not like it at all, because the plot did not bring anything to the table, nothing new, nothing interesting. There was no such a thing as grasping full attention towards some action or some thought-provoking occurrences. This book had none of these things. It was also very stagnating for me. I really had a very hard time getting into the story because, as I said before, it was so stagnating, and I was waiting for things to happen, and things would happen, but they're just not interesting things happening at all. So it was very hard for me to get through this book because the writing read so the writing was really difficult to read, to be read in general. It is not fluid at all. It really lacks fluidity. This is what I think. Maybe it's because it's oldish English. But again, I really love the Bronte sisters' writing. I think it's beautiful and lyrical, and it's kind of in the same time. So I don't know. It just did not work for me. Her writing style did not work for me at all. Now, moving on to the characters. I think that this is the most annoying cast of characters I've ever read about. I understand that some of these characters are on purpose made to be annoying, because that's the point. Like Mrs. Bingley, their father, Mr. Collins, their cousin. But I think it was too much, because these characters are just so hard to feel, hard to follow, hard to empathize with, hard to understand. You just read about them and you just want to kill all of them, because they're just like, oh my god, why do you say this? Why do you do that? I think the top in my list is Mr. Collins. I really hate this character so much. And of course, Mrs. Bennet, sorry. I just thought that it was too much. Like, it is too much of a bad portrayal. So at the end of the day, I mean, all of them were annoying. Elizabeth for me was also very annoying. The way she would look down at her sisters, the way she would speak about her sisters. Their father also, Mr. Bennet, he would just be in his study room reading his books, refusing to solve any problems, just sitting there, being tired and fed up with all of them. So when I was reading, I was like, okay, it's great that she's really trying to portray and see what this, like some sort of social reality, but it's just too annoying to put into a work of fiction. And what's more annoying is the actual interaction between these characters. Sometimes it's just too weird, too awkward, non-understandable. Why is this person talking this way to that other person? He was very uncomfortable for me at some times. So I did not get the point. And for me, when I do not feel the characters at all, and when I don't connect with any of them, it makes it so painful for me to finish reading. Now, actually moving on to the actual love story between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. Now, I just have a quick question, because I feel that I really missed the point of this story or this relationship or whatever one you want to call it. But what does it that made this love story the greatest one in literature? I really could not see it. Okay, there was tons of prejudice about the guy. He turned out to be a really good guy. They really thought that he was a douchebag, but he turned out not to be that, to be really nice and all of that. So that's literally it. But then I don't get what's so special about it. They barely talked. They had some interaction full of wit, which was, okay, very playful, very witty. But then all of a sudden he comes to her and he says that he loves her, and it's just, but how did this happen? I mean, they met each other twice before. They spoke twice before, and it was a very it was more of an argument than a fight. He saw her 4 times. For me, there was not enough interaction between these two characters to make it a full-on, understandable love story that would be, close to my heart, that I would feel in particular. It was just too much for me, and I did not really feel them as a couple at all. On the other hand, I thought that Jane and Mr. Bingley story was much more out there. A lot of many more things happened to them. So I thought that was a nice, it was a relationship that made more sense for me than the other one. So it just overall, the style of these, the style of the writing, the style of the love story itself, it just did not speak to me. And one thing that really bothered me is that at the beginning she was a very independent person. Really, she was not thinking this much about this idea of getting married and obsessing over good fortunes and all of that. And then at the end, when Darcy proposed to her or whatever, she was just so taken with the idea, and she would just be thinking about, everything she would be missing out on, his Pemberley property and everything he is and everything he has. And I was just okay, we are losing a good point of the book right now. So it just took me by disappointing surprise. So again, this is my opinion about the book. I just came to the conclusion that this is not some sort of classic that would work for me at all. It would just not work for me at all. I understand why it might have been a hit in the early 1900, but today, in today's world, honestly, I really don't understand why this book would be a hit, or why this love story is considered to be the greatest love story in literature by many. I know that this book is one of the most studied among academia. People do thesis on that, PhDs probably, they study it in universities, in English degrees. I would understand that because there are some topics that can be studied, mainly the portrayal of the society at that time, that I totally understand. But other than that, for readers that read this book outside of an academic or analytical, fully literary analysis, I do not see, I just could not grasp the essence and what makes this book so special. And I just feel that it either works for you or it doesn't. And for me, too bad it did not work. Now, I might want to give Jane Austen another chance and read one of her other books like Emma or Sense and Sensibility. If you're a Jane Austen fan, let me know in the comment down below what other book I should be reading by Jane Austen to give her another chance. And also, please let us know in the comment why, if you love this love story, if you love this book, tell us what from your perspective you see as very special about it. maybe we can, maybe I really missed a point and I really want to be able to fully understand why I missed. So if you really love this book, just let me know, let us know what is so special about it, why is it dear to your heart, or why is it a story that you enjoyed. Yeah, that would be interesting to read about these things. I'm very open to see and to fully understand people's opinions on this particular book. With that being said, that was my full-on opinion about this book, full-on thoughts, why it didn't work for me. I hope no one took it personally, because I know that this book is one of the most cherished worldwide, but again, it's just my very, very own personal opinions. So yeah, do not forget to follow me on Instagram. You get to see my little unboxings and when I speak quickly about books I read. And yeah, without any further talking and just, you know, going on and on and on, I will see you guys next week. Have a nice week and bye!